everyone, my name is Jackie. For those of you who don't know me, I live in Katherine in the Northern Territory, and these videos are going to be a way for me to document my journey to hiking the Washington section of the Pacific Crest Trail in America next year. I'm planning on doing that in sort of mid to late July next year, and I'll be hiking for 5 weeks. I just told my mum and my younger brother. They're a little bit shocked, but I am super excited. I have seronegative rheumatoid arthritis, and up until probably March last year, so less than 12 months ago, I was on my way to being crippled. It was extremely painful. So just for this first video I thought I'd do an introduction and take you through my journey to get to where I am now as far as my arthritis goes. So when I was about 26, I think, I was living in Timber Creek in the Northern Territory, and I started getting really bad pains in my right elbow. And I lost a lot of mobility and it was very painful. So I went to the clinic there and I was diagnosed with RSI, which I thought was a little weird because I didn't really do anything particular. It's not like I played tennis or anything with, you know, that would repetitive strain injury that would cause that. But he said that's what it was, so you know, there's nothing you can do about RSI, you just kind of got to live with it. So I just didn't really do anything about it, and then a couple of years later it started getting worse, like a lot worse. Like I was in constant daily pain. I was putting heat packs on it every night trying to reduce the swelling and the pain. And my then husband said to me, just next time you're at the doctor, just ask them to check it out. So I did, and that triggered 18 months to 2 years of testing from a rheumatologist and from a surgeon. The rheumatologist, the first time I went and saw her, she did a blood test, and most rheumatoid arthritis types leave like a marker in the blood. So that was the first thing she did. She did a blood test and it came up negative, no markers in the blood. So she said to me, you know, it looks like you don't have arthritis, so now we've got to figure out what it was. So they did every type of scan and that they could possibly do on me, and nothing was definitive. So eventually the only answer was surgery. It was supposed to be just keyhole surgery, but when I went in for the surgery, it was either a new guy setting up the camera and equipment, or the camera and equipment was new and wasn't working properly. So he made the keyhole incisions and then tried to get the equipment to work, and it wouldn't. So then he had to do a full incision. So I'm not sure if you can see that there. So that's my surgery scar just there. Anyway, so he went in there and he found what they called rheumatoid-like growth. Therefore, I have rheumatoid arthritis, but seronegative arthritis, which means no markers in the blood. So the growth was the synovial membrane had grown out of control and was causing, you know, pain and inflammation. So he cleaned all that up, and my my elbow was a lot better, but my arthritis kept getting worse. So it kept spreading to other joints. And it just slowly started getting worse and worse, and they put me on medication, which they told me I was going to be on for the rest of my life. Back then I sort of didn't really question it, you know, just that's what the doctors say, and so that was what I was on, and I didn't look into the drugs or anything. And then I moved up to Northern Territory, so I was living in Queensland then. I moved up to Northern Territory, separated from my husband, and my arthritis was getting worse and worse. So I was taking Nurofen and Panadol together, probably 4 to 5 days a week, just trying to keep the pain under control. I was working in a really stressful job, I was drinking a lot, my diet was really bad, but didn't know that any of that was connected to my arthritis, like what I was eating and drinking and the pain levels and how bad it was getting. So I went and saw a rheumatologist in Darwin, and she put me on even stronger medication. And it was from her that I found out that rheumatoid arthritis drugs are a mild form of chemotherapy drug, which I didn't know because I never looked into it. I just trusted that they were putting me on the right thing, the best thing. So I started taking those drugs, but I was really unhappy taking those extra drugs now that I knew that they were chemotherapy drugs. And anyway, so continued on like that for a bit, and then had some good fortune and changed jobs, and my stress levels just plummeted. I was so much happier. I was in a much better place mentally, and I started looking into I guess ways to control my arthritis not using drugs, so in other words through diet. And I didn't know that diet was, there was a correlation between diet and arthritis. So I started cleaning up my diet, and it was working. And then I went full paleo, and that was definitely a big improvement, huge improvement. Like, it was actually getting better. I was going to the gym every day. I was doing push-ups, which was amazing because my wrists and my elbows were almost completely shot before that. So it started all getting better, and then over time it just started getting worse again. I relaxed my diet a little bit, but I just couldn't get it back under control even when I went really strict paleo again. And it was getting really bad, and I was almost at the point where I thought I was going to have to start taking drugs again because I was well on my way to becoming a cripple again. And my partner's manager sent him a link to boron supplements, and saying, you know, her family had started taking boron supplements, and you know, they were having finding a big, you know, positive effect from taking that. So she sent it to him for me to read because she knew that I had arthritis. Now, for those of you that don't know, boron is borax, which is a poison and a cleaner that you find in the cleaning aisle. And I just went, I am not poisoning myself. And I didn't even read the article, I just dismissed it completely. And then a couple months later, she asked again if, she asked Steve if I had started taking it or even read the article, and he just went, no, she didn't even read it. And then she told him some anecdotal evidence from her family. So she had a uncle, I think, with really bad back problems, that, you know, if his back went out, he'd be flat on his back for a month before he could get up and around again. And yes, his back was still would go out on him, but his recovery was a lot quicker. He'd only be out for a week and then he'd be up and around again. She had an uncle with arthritis with, you know, really malformed hands. You can get them, and they're all anyway, really bad hands, and he'd been taking them for 6 months and was back playing tennis and things like that. And I was pretty borderline at the point when she was telling him these things of going back onto drugs. And I thought, oh, bugger it, you know, what's the worst that can happen? I'll die, I suppose. So she gave us some boron, or borax, and I started taking it. Now, just in case you are interested in this, if you do decide that you might want to give this a go, just make sure you do your own research first. I am not telling anybody to take borax or to poison themselves, or you've just got to be really careful of the dose. So full disclosure or disclaimer, I am not telling you to take borax, I'm just saying it's worked for me. So the one that we have is called, that's it there, I'm not sure you can really see that, but the brand is Glitz Green, and it's 99.9% disodium tetraborate decahydrate. So it's almost pure boron, essentially. Boron is actually a trace mineral that's found in the ground, and it used to be that plants would absorb the boron into them, and then we would eat that plant, and that was how humans would get boron. But with the farming practices these days, when farmers fertilise their crops, they fertilise for growth, not human nutrition, which is, you know, that's just the way it is. I'm not making comment on that. So we're all deficient in boron essentially, but it's an essential trace mineral, and the amount that you have of this, when you actually drink it as a supplement, is minute. So you dissolve 1 teaspoon into a litre of water, and that's your concentrate. And then you start off slowly. So I started off taking a teaspoon a day of the concentrate, diluted into water, and just drink it. I couldn't taste it. And then built it up. I think the most I was having was 3 tablespoons a day, like over the day, not just like 3 tablespoons, diluted into water. But I only took that dose for probably 2 to 3 weeks, and then I dropped it back to 2 tablespoons a day, so 1 in the morning, 1 at night, of the concentrate dissolved into water. And it worked. I can't even describe the difference now. I actually have a picture, should have brought it, but I tracked the flexibility in my wrists. So before, I couldn't really flex my wrists at all. They were seized up. The pain was really bad. After I'd been taking the boron for probably 2 weeks, I could start to feel that they were loosening up. Like they just felt better. Like the muscles were stretching, like I could actually stretch them. And I thought, I really should track this, or try to track this somehow. So I started drawing a picture, or tracing across the top of my wrist, and then writing the date and of how the flexibility was improving. And it was astounding, the difference. My partner couldn't believe it, I couldn't believe it, and I just felt so much better. My feet, I have arthritis in my feet, and I couldn't walk properly. I was walking on the edges of my feet because my toes, it's actually one of my toes is dislocated now, and then that just happened over time, just from the inflammation and just the joint. The inflammation in the joint just slowly popped that out, and it's just kind of permanently dislocated now. But that was causing a huge callus in the bottom of my foot, and